Great. And Alex, do you want to quickly rename your? Is going to transition us to be streaming live, and just a reminder, don't say anything that you wouldn't want shared with everybody who's watching. So
Or
Dan,
especially if you wouldn't want it in the Watertown Times or on WWNY. So
Exactly.
That's a good policy.
And I believe we are now live for December 11th College Council meeting at SUNY Potsdam. June, I'll take it. You can take it away.
thank you very much. Well, it's good to see everybody. One of these days, we will actually be in the same room at the same time, and that will be cause for celebration. But in the meantime, we will conduct our business socially distant, certainly more than 6 feet apart, and definitely doing it safely. Sorry about that. So it is my privilege to call this meeting of the College Council to order. Everyone received a packet of information earlier in the week, which I assume you have all read and committed to memory because there may or may not be a spot exam. Only kidding, of course. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from our last meeting. The minutes were included, and Rich made a motion to accept them as submitted.
A second.
Okay. Is there discussion, corrections, additions, subtractions? Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the minutes as submitted, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. The minutes are adopted. The chair's report will be very brief this morning. I know you're all disappointed about that. But what I want to say first and foremost is congratulations to our students, our faculty, our staff, our administration, and all of you who have been working nonstop, it seems, since March, with barely enough time to poke your head up and take a deep breath. But the campus, and you'll hear more about this later, has done a remarkable job in the face of unimaginable circumstances. So everyone deserves multiple pats on the back, tips of the hat, and all of those celebratory things that we do when we're happy about something. So despite the fact that we are still in the middle of a pandemic, which seems to be worsening as we speak, there is light at the end of the tunnel in the form of the vaccine that's been approved and the ones that are in the pipeline. And we're somewhat relieved to know that the light at the end of the tunnel is not a train. So we are cautiously optimistic, but we know that we can't just say, okay, we did it, congratulations to us. No, we didn't. We did it and we're doing it and we will continue to do it until this thing is once again, it never has been, is really under control nationwide. And that, of course, complicates all the things because it's not just us. It's not just St. Lawrence County. Just like you, I watch all the numbers and I see, Jeff, that Jefferson County is only 100 cases behind us now.
Yeah.
So just keep on keeping on. And we will get through this together. So thank you all for being here, and thank you for everything that you do and have done and will continue to do every day and moving forward to keep us up and running and to make sure that our students are safe and healthy and continue to have access to the best courses. So we really appreciate it. And now I'm going to get off my soapbox. I only have one more thing to tell you. And I'm not getting political here. Imagine that, Rich.
Not saying a word.
Most people think that the election is all over. That's what most people think. But I want you to know that there's another election that's coming up that's very important. And that's on Monday, December 14th, when I am proud to go to Albany for the meeting of the Electoral College. At noon on Monday, all of the electors in all of the states will be meeting in their state capitals to cast their electoral votes. So that's happening Monday, and I'm going to be there. I'm told that it's going to be live streamed if anybody's interested. And if I get the link, I'll let you know. So that's it for me. I'm going to turn it now over to President Esterberg.
Thank you so much, June, and thanks to all the members of the College Council for being here today. We are reaching the end of this unprecedented semester, and as I've said in other venues, I cannot wait till we have a precedented semester, and I'm no longer saying that this is unprecedented. But this is the last day of classes, and finals are next week. So students and faculty alike, I hope will be able to take a deep breath and a pause for what has been a truly stressful period for the campus. But I have to say, I start with more gratitude and thanks than anything else. It has been an extraordinary semester in terms of support of students, in terms of students and faculty and staff, really just taking as the first priority keeping the campus community safe and keeping our own larger region safe. The campus has done an extraordinary job. Let me talk a little bit about support of students. We were able to distribute about $2.2 million in CARES Act funds and emergency funds for students, thanks to the stimulus package. We just recently received news of a $50,000 Heckscher grant, again, to go to student emergency needs. The faculty led an extraordinary effort this semester to send what they call bear care packages to students who were in need. So a faculty member might hear that a student had a death in the family or had a sick family member, or was just having a difficult time, or they learned that a student was really struggling. A single family who, a family led by a single parent who, was low on funds. And they collected funds to send out 64 plus bear care packages with gift cards, notes, and sort of words of support and encouragement. It was an incredible effort. And I want to say that this particular effort was led by Blair Medor and by Holly Chambers in the library. And Blair, I want to thank you personally, and I thanked Holly personally, but they did an extraordinary job attending to our students' physical needs and emotional needs. Other thank yous, I don't think there's a person on this campus that I don't want to thank in terms of keeping the campus safe. Julie Dold, our Director of Res Life, and Tracy Harcourt and her incredible staff of nurses were chief among them, but also Eric Ducher, Pat O'Brien, our Director of Health and Safety, Nicole Themmel, Betty Bergeron, every single member of President's Council played an important role in keeping our campus community safe, and I couldn't be more grateful to them. We had dozens of faculty and staff who volunteered to sign up to help with the testing. And I have to say, Testing Tuesday became one of my favorite days of the week because it was one of the few days in which I could actually see people in real time, in real space. So it was a pleasure, for example, to see Eric regularly. Eric's area led Testing Tuesday, and to see, again, the care that our students took, wearing masks, being careful with each other, We have one alum who showed up every single week to help out. And so the response of the community has just been extraordinary, and I couldn't be more grateful. I've got a few more thank yous and hurrahs, but I do want to say, unfortunately, Betty Bergeron couldn't be with us here this morning. She had an appointment she couldn't miss. But I do want to make an important update. Jill Perrin has taken the role of provost at Indiana University, South Bend. This is an incredible opportunity for her, and while we are devastated that she's leaving us, this speaks so highly both to her and her incredible competence, but it also speaks highly to the campus and the experiences that she was able to have on our campus and the extraordinary mentoring that Betty was able to provide. This is an incredible role, an incredible promotional opportunity. So Jill, congratulations. We will miss you, but this is just such an extraordinarily good thing for her and frankly for the campus, because I always believe that when someone takes that kind of a role, people look and say, wow, this person came from SUNY Potsdam. That's amazing. So I also have good news in terms of the person stepping in the interim dean role. Lonell Woods, Dr. Woods will be taking on that role. And I couldn't be more grateful and prouder. I think he'll be an incredible interim dean, following in Jill's footsteps, following in the incredible footsteps of Michael Sitton, and then Julia Crane and Helen Hosmer, and all of Crane's illustrious history before him and before them. So that is a bittersweet thank you and hello to Lonell, who you'll see next time. We do have two very critical searches ongoing, and I will say it's a difficult environment in which to search, but we are searching for a permanent vice president for enrollment management, and we are searching for a chief diversity officer. Sal Kenya is leading the search for the VP for enrollment management, and doing a wonderful job at that. So if you have any candidates as members of council, we'd appreciate your sending the position description widely. Gretchen Galbraith and Lonell Woods are leading the search for the chief diversity officer. And again, this is an important search for us. And if you've got leads, I hope you'll pass them around. You're going to hear a lot more about our strategy for next semester in a PowerPoint that Nicole Bemmel and Eric Duchier are giving. So I'm going to leave the details to them, but let me just close with my deep appreciation for everything that this body has done to help keep us safe, and mostly a thank you to our students and our faculty and our staff for their extraordinary work. I couldn't be more grateful to be a part of SUNY Potsdam, and I couldn't be prouder of the effort of our campus community. So happy to answer any questions to the best of my ability, and thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Esterberg. Are there questions, comments, anything? Okay, if not, thank you very much. And thank you for mentioning that Betty Bergeron couldn't be here today. I had that in my notes and I skipped over it. And of course, congratulations to Jill. We will miss you, but our loss, their gain. All right, and we obviously wish you very well as you begin the next chapter. As you turn the page, I should say, musically speaking. Okay, so now, in case you haven't heard enough, we're going to get a detailed briefing on the COVID-19 situation for the fall, and looking forward to the planning for the upcoming, again, unprecedented spring semester. So I will now turn the floor over to Eric Duchier and Nicole Femmel for the presentation. And now we can see the screen.
Great. Thank you so much, June. And thank you, June, for your optimistic approach to the beginning of our meeting. It definitely has been a very long year. I think we're closer to the 1 year anniversary of when we started planning in March, and it has been a long few months, but our campus is absolutely amazing. I think our teams came together not only on our campus, but across the North Country region, across the state, and even nationally. A lot of our colleagues reached out to their peers for best practices. So we're very grateful for our entire campus, our students, our faculty, and our staff. So Eric and I are going to tag team the presentation today to College Council. So I'm going to first turn it over to him for the first slide.
Thanks, Nicole, and thanks, June, for allowing us the opportunity to not only provide a recap, but as you've probably sensed in some of the comments already, really brag about our efforts. I'd be the first one to shame myself and say I was incredibly pessimistic in August about whether or not we would actually make it until November 20th. And I am so pleased that my pessimism was so wrong. And it certainly had nothing to do with the talents and skills and abilities of not only our faculty and staff, but as our students as well, but more given the course of where the pandemic was and availability of quarantine and isolation spaces on campus. And again, I'm so glad that I was wrong, because the planning of our teams in particular, Tracy and her team in student health and Julie and her team in residence life, as have been mentioned already, really deserve so much of the credit, because their knowledge and expertise and dedication really led to our success. So certainly our goal, as this slide indicates, was to bring back as many faculty, staff, and students as we possibly could in as safe a manner as we could. And we did this based on our own planning and guidance from SUNY, and as Nicole mentioned, tremendous partnerships that we've had with our associated colleges, colleagues, with the St. Lawrence County Public Health Office, and certainly the state. It really was, as they say, it takes a village. And the partnerships and relationships that we had and established proved invaluable. Our ERRG, or our Emergency Resource Response Group, which is our emergency planning team, got activated back in March. So as Nicole said, we are edging up on a year of having that group activated. That group remains active. In fact, we had a meeting yesterday. We have been meeting weekly throughout the course of the semester to not only give updates about current situation of COVID and campus response, as well as pivoting more recently towards our planning for the spring, which I will mention and talk about in a slide in the future. But we continue to monitor the ongoing health of the pandemic. A number of our administrators, including the president and Tracy in student health, have access to a really important dashboard database, which gives us up to the minute statistics about outbreaks, and we can really narrow down by zip code in areas, especially around the campus, to see the trends and how the campus may need to respond to that. Nicole, I think you're up next.
Yes, great. Thank you, Eric. One of the things that we've done throughout this process is worked very closely with SUNY System. And so we did submit our fall reopening plan, which seems like forever ago, but a few months ago, to them for review and input. One of the things that they've asked us is to, just as Eric said, brag about the things that we did on our campus, the best practices, the decisions that we made that kept our numbers so low. And we'll review those numbers in just a second. But we've been putting together a document which, once it's finalized, I'm happy to share with the council members, so you can read the pages upon pages of best practices. But one of the first things that came to light during one of our President's Council meetings, and Dr. Claudia Ford, who is our interim Chief Diversity Officer, brought this point up, and thank you so much for sharing that great point, is that Potsdam really came together and we have a culture of compliance. And so when I think of that, what I think is that we have the Potsdam Pledge, and we're always encouraging our students to do the right things, not only on our campus, but in the community and wherever they find themselves after graduation. So that long existing culture of the Potsdam Pledge and the personal responsibility for everybody, not only ourselves, I think really set the tone going into the fall semester. Our students came back and they wanted to be in Potsdam. They wanted to stay in Potsdam. I'm not sure, Eric will share the final number in just a little bit, but we have a handful of students who are remaining in Potsdam even over the winter break. And so our students wanted to be back. They wanted to do the right thing. And I think that really shows in the compliance with surveillance testing. And we had set up a community at potsdam.edu where if a student noticed, even if it was a faculty or staff member who wasn't doing the right thing, whether it was wearing a mask or they heard of a gathering downtown, they were reporting those because it was really this personal responsibility for the entire community. So I think that was definitely a highlight, and thank you again, Dr. Ford, for sharing that. We also, as the president mentioned in her remarks, our campus cares for one another. Our faculty and staff stepped up to develop a variety of ways that they were checking in with students, whether it was students who were back home and we learned of them getting COVID, or family members writing letters, making phone calls. In one of the surveys that we did, the students said that the personal phone calls from our faculty and staff, just picking up the phone and asking them, how are you doing? Over Thanksgiving break, I know that President Esterberg called the students who had to remain on campus because they were quarantined and couldn't go home for Thanksgiving just to check in. And I think that speaks volumes of what Potsdam is and how we care for one another. I think that one of the protocols that is a best practice that we can be very proud of, and I have to say that Tracy Harcourt, our director of the Student Health Center, should get all the credit for this. She recommended what would be seen as an aggressive approach to testing. All of our students were tested upon arrival back to campus with a nasal swab test. So that created a baseline so we could see, the community spread, who was bringing potentially COVID to campus. And then we did surveillance testing, which Eric will go into detail on, but that protocol and that aggressive approach to testing really did help keep our numbers low. And then finally, as we've said a couple of times, the relationship with the four colleges, Clarkson, St. Lawrence University, SUNY Canton, and ourselves, we worked together. My counterparts met weekly. And one of the things is that we wanted to have similar protocols for testing and behavioral expectations because we know, one of the highlights at our reunion, which unfortunately we couldn't hold this year, is our Potsdam and Clarkson couples breakfast, where those who met and are now married get together. It shows that our students definitely cross the river, as we say, to hang out and get to know one another. So we wanted to make sure that we were working to understand what other campuses were doing and have the same approach. So those are just four very quick highlights of best practices on our campus and in our region that we took. Again, I'll make sure that you get the document and we'll share that because we do have a lot to be proud of, and a lot of work went into everything from our quarantine procedures to how we were communicating with our students and their families. But of course, with everything, there are lessons learned and things that we learned very quickly that we needed to do or change. I think one of the things is we responded very quickly to anything that was shared, in the governor's press conferences or by SUNY, or, the changing landscape going on in St. Lawrence County, as cases begin to rise, monitoring those cases and making sure that we're making decisions about who's coming to work. And so just to highlight a couple of things, one of the things that was very important was the virtual town halls that we offered. And so we will continue to do that. But one of the things we learned is that our parents and families really want to be informed. And so while we put every communication that we were sending out, whether it was to faculty or to students online, one of the things we quickly did was developed parent and family listserv. So that way we could forward on communications. So parents were getting it in real time and they didn't need to go look for it, that they felt just as much a part of the Potsdam family and our response and planning as their own students. The other thing that we noticed is developing frequently asked questions was helpful in reducing the number of individual inquiries. So what we did is we started to develop FAQs to put online to direct students to. Our staff are doing the very best that they can do to keep up with the volume of calls and emails. And that was one way we learned that if the same question's being asked multiple times, let's put it out there so that way we can reduce the number of individual inquiries. And the last thing is just looking back in the timeline, and no one knew, you know, how quickly this was going to pop in the spring or the second wave. We did our best to anticipate, and I think just looking back, formalizing the structure of the ERRG and the committee support, making sure that the key people were at the table and that we had the communication, you know, if there was a representative on the committee, ensuring that they brought it back to their department. So a lot with communication and being proactive with communication. You know, we altered our surveillance testing, on the ground procedures and things like that as we went. But I think, you know, furthering our communication is one lesson learned looking back. So I know the ERRG is doing an ongoing after action report. So members on that committee are seeking feedback on things that we can do better, and certainly will continue to look at those items and improve as we continue through this very long health crisis. So Eric, I think I'm turning it back over to you to talk about surveillance testing.
Yeah, thanks, Nicole. So I want to spend just a couple of short minutes telling you a little bit about our surveillance testing process. As Nicole mentioned, after opening process and students returning to campus, we pivoted and changed the way that we were doing our testing. Instead of doing the very invasive procedure that Tracy affectionately refers to as tickling your brain, where a swab is inserted up into the nasal passage, very invasive and has to be done by a licensed skilled professional, we pivoted to the surveillance testing with Upstate Medical that they developed. And as you can see on this slide, Governor Cuomo just congratulated and recognized Upstate Medical on their #1 FDA ranking for this saliva test and how it worked and how efficient it was in detecting the virus in its earlier stages. Essentially how it works, and we supervise this, but medical professionals don't actually have to be administering it. Students and employees administer this themselves. They swab the inside of both of their cheeks with essentially what is a Q-tip, and it goes into a vial that has a little liquid in it, and you shake it, and that's it. It's very simple. Students have their information already logged into the portal. They record the barcode, their unique barcode that's on the test tube. They do the oral swab of saliva themselves. Again, it gets placed in that test tube and essentially they're done. Then what we do with that is we, as indicated on the slide, the saliva is then pooled. So we take 10 individual pooled saliva samples from students, and the liquid that's in the vial gets pooled from the 12 smaller vials into a larger vial. It's all barcoded. They're all in bags that are synchronized with barcodes, and that essentially ends the pooling. And then the samples are shipped down to Syracuse and Upstate Medical. And when I say shipped, we've had an incredible number of volunteers from our physical plant that have volunteered their own time, afternoons and evenings, to drive the samples down at the end of testing to have them at the lab by 7 o'clock in Syracuse. And then obviously they have to turn around and drive back. Then what Upstate does is they test the larger vials that have the saliva liquid in it from the 12 samples. And if that sample tests negative, then you assume and rule out that all 12 of the students or employees that are in that sample are negative. If that pool tests positive, then what they have to do is go back and test each individual sample that's in the pool to determine how many of those individual samples are positive. And that's essentially how it works. It is very efficient because in one test you can rule out 12 either students or employees and very quickly move on to the next sample. We have been getting those results back in about 36 hours. So when they're down by 7 o'clock on a Tuesday night, either late Wednesday night or early Thursday morning, we have those results back. If there is a positive pool, and we have had an occasional positive pool, then the 12 people or students or employees who are in that pool are notified that they are in a pool that tested positive. They are advised to self-quarantine, and within another 24 hours, we have the individual reflex testing back that lets us know in the pool who is positive and who is negative. It is very efficient. Upstate has been tremendous in getting the results back, and it's really been tremendous. After opening, where we tested all students twice, both upon their arrival and then again in the second week, students, faculty, staff, and this includes our PACES employees, were split into two groups, a group A and a group B. For our students, we put half of our on-campus students in group A and half of our off-campus students in group A, and similar with group B, so that we were getting half of each of those population each week. Now, the reason for doing that is not only is it efficient and it tests all students every 14 days, but we know our students are interacting with each other. And so it's inevitable that students in group A are interacting with students in group B. And so in essence, it is like testing all of our students each week. Similar faculty, staff, and PACES employees were split into two groups. And so we tested those students and those faculty and staff, 50% of them every other week through the end of the semester and up until Thanksgiving break. And then SUNY had pivoted and asked that we test all of our students prior to sending them home for Thanksgiving break, so that students knew when they were returning to their families, their home communities, that they could go back with a reasonable certainty that they weren't bringing any COVID back with them. And so that was also smashing successful, although we did have a number of positives at the end of the week related to people going home for Thanksgiving, and did end up having 58 of our students that we ended up having to have in mostly quarantine. We had 2 positives and then a third one that student health tested in their office. So a large majority of those students had close contact and were placed in precautionary quarantine, but did not end up testing positive themselves. And so I think, Nicole, if you go on to the next slide, that will show the updated case details as of, and this includes our testing Tuesday that just happened on the 8th that President Esтерberg mentioned. And so to me, I want you to really look at this slide, and I'm going to pause for dramatic effect, because we only had 16 students out of the almost 12,000 tests that we conducted test positive, and the employee numbers are equally impressive. And so I know the president mentioned this before, but it bears repeating how remarkably responsive our students were. Our student leaders, those in clubs and organizations, particularly those in Greek organizations and athletic teams, were amazing leaders and role models in getting the word out to our students and putting peer pressure on their peers to behave, to not travel outside of the region, to not engage in large-scale partying where they had lots of guests and people in their off-campus houses. And I think this is really indicative in these case numbers that are listed on your screen. These are also kept up to date regularly, not only on the college's website, but there is also a dashboard that SUNY maintains that has these case details for all of the campuses across SUNY. So they are truly remarkable. And I would also add that these numbers do include our Watertown students who did also participate in biweekly surveillance testing. Laura Carbone and Alan Hersker drove themselves down on Monday and administered the surveillance testing and saliva testing themselves, drove the samples back to campus and dropped them off on Tuesday morning so they could be pooled with the rest of the students. So I think that's covers our our testing, and obviously we'll take questions at the end. So Nicole, I think it's back to you. Oh, no, it's spring planning. I'm sorry, that's me. So pivoting, I apologize. I thought this was another slide down the road. As was mentioned about the fall, SUNY gave us guidelines and we had to submit a plan for opening. That plan for the spring semester was just submitted yesterday, and it was based on a guidance document that we received for SUNY. And essentially it is very similar to our fall plan because it works so well. The old adage, if it's not broken, you don't need to fix it. We certainly, as Nicole mentioned, have lots of lessons learned, but our basic plan really worked. Our students will self-quarantine in their homes for 7 days prior to coming back to campus. They will then get tested on day 8, which research has shown is the most sensitive and best day for testing. They will continue to self-quarantine while they are waiting for their results back. All of our students will then receive a second pooled saliva test in the second week that they're back. And again, we'll continue to self-quarantine while they are waiting for those results back. And then after those first 2 weeks, the students will then be able to begin to engage in their in-person classes if they have any, as well as any in-person activities. And Nicole will talk about the academic calendar here in a minute. We are trying to encourage as many of our students that would like to and are able to be back on campus that would like to. We know we have students that have food and housing insecurity issues. We know we have students that have technology issues that just don't have good places to be able to excel in their academic coursework. And so even students who have all of their classes remote now or in the spring are still invited and encouraged to come back in campus. We had about 1,000 students living in our campus residence halls this past fall semester, and we currently have a survey out right now to students both on and off campus, asking them to indicate what their plans are for the spring semester. And in typical amazing response from our students, within about 30 hours of that survey being out, we had over 1,000 responses from students already, which those of you that know survey data is an amazing response. So we're continuing to work on that. There's a real emphasis on face-to-face engagement with students while maintaining our health and safety guidelines. We know from our research and anecdotally and formal with our students that they are looking for things to do. They are looking for campus activities. You know, we did open recreation skating with no more than 20 people every Thursday night this semester. We did attendance tracking in case we needed to do contact tracing, and it was packed or sold out with all 20 of those spaces every time we did it. And so that's just one example of how students are just craving that face-to-face interaction. They don't want to be stuck in their rooms, they're lonely. And so again, as is safely possible to do, we're working on our plans to continue as much face-to-face engagement with students as we can in the spring. We're continuing our flexibility with faculty and how their modality is for their instruction. Again, we're certainly encouraging faculty as they are safely able to do as much face-to-face instruction as they can, but certainly there are a number of courses that will be continued to be offered either remotely or in some type of hybrid fashion. And if the trend of the pandemic at any point, either leading up to the spring or after we're open in the spring, is such where based on the state and local guidelines, gets to be at such a level where we need to transition at any point in time to all virtual learning. All of our teaching faculty and professional staff are prepared to do that should we need to pivot in that direction, either for a short-term period, which oftentimes has been no more than 2 weeks, or if we need to do that for a longer period of time.
Great, thanks, Eric. And the next slide, we just want to share what our academic calendar will look like for the spring. So SUNY did put out some guidelines regarding the spring semester that classes cannot begin before February 1st. And also we cannot have a spring break because one of the concerns is with students traveling across the state and community spread. So we'll start phasing students back the week of January 25th and again do that baseline testing that we talked about earlier. And then February 1st is when classes will officially begin, but we're going to be going virtual for the first 2 weeks to ensure that any test results come back and that we can isolate any potential positive cases. And then in lieu of having a spring break, we know very much so that our students and our faculty and staff need breathers. And so one of the biggest things that we heard from students is they need a break. And so we're going to be including, we have various terms for this, but mental health days, a few days here and there starting halfway through the semester, just to give everybody a breather and our students the break that they need and deserve from all of their hard work.
78.43%.
Oh. And if you could just remember to mute your microphones as well, just so that way we don't get some of the background noise. And so our last day of classes will be May 14th, and then we'll go into our finals week, the week of May 17th. Of course, this schedule is subject to change depending on how things go between now and that week in January. And then, of course, as Eric said, we'll be ready to pivot at any point during the spring semester if we need to go all virtual. So that is the main information that we wanted to share, the debrief from the fall and highlights from our spring semester. So we're happy to take any questions that the council may have, whether it's on the fall or are planning for the spring.
Nicole, I have a question.
Go ahead, Rich.
Where does the potential vaccine fall into the planning for the 2021 year?
That is a great question. I know that SUNY just sent information, Eric, I believe it was yesterday, regarding a potential SUNY-wide access to vaccines and protocols. So Eric, I don't know if you want to speak to that. I have not had time to dig through those yet, but definitely thinking about it for sure.
Yeah, Rich, we're certainly hoping to, there's a couple of different ways that the college may be involved in this. And as Nicole said, the information is pretty fresh as to how we can do that. Tracy Harcourt, our student health director, was exploring this and was working with St. Lawrence County or St. Lawrence Health System, which used to be Canton Potsdam Hospital in the county, to understand whether or not we would work through them to get the vaccines or whether or not we wanted to submit information to actually have our campus be a vaccine hub, not only for our employees and our students, but also the local community. As you can imagine, with some of the vaccines, there's certainly some infrastructure and equipment like those really cold freezers that we would need to have to be able to do that. We actually do have one of those freezers in our biochem lab that's certainly being used for academic purposes. That may or may not be useful for us to be able to use for the vaccine as well. But I imagine we'll be able to share more detailed information at the next college council meeting in January or February. But we're certainly exploring, and if there's an opportunity for SUNY Potsdam to be at the forefront of the vaccine administration, that's certainly something we'd like to do, just as we feel like we've been a leader in the testing and the prevention, both on campus and in the community.
Great, thank you.
Are there other questions? What have you been doing in your spare time?
Are you asking us that?
I am, Nicole.
What's that, June?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a distant memory.
That's okay. It's all making us stronger as professionals and people. So I think many of us are looking towards 2021 for an epic comeback, as I keep referring to it. But
Yes.
we've I think our campus all in all has been very successful. I think it's made a lot of us come closer as colleagues. I think, we relied on one another before, but there's been many a late night phone calls and text messages. And I think we've come together, and looking forward to the day when we can have a party together and celebrate our success, because individuals like Julie and Tracy and others have literally been working round the clock. And I hope that the council will also consider potential recognition of specific individuals and departments, because I don't think thank you just doesn't seem enough, and I don't think it ever will, but we literally are talking about the lives of other people, and people like Julie and Tracy are the reason that we've kept people safe. So June, I hope that the council will consider something when we're out of this, and hopefully we'll be there soon.
Okay, thank you, Nicole and Eric. Nicole, have you heard from Tiffany? Is she still in class?
I think that Tiffany is probably focusing on her academics.
Yes,
and
okay.
Yes, so I don't
Okay.
think that she will be joining us this morning.
Okay, all right. So we'll move on down the agenda then. And next up is Blair Medor. Blair is going to give us the update from the Faculty Senate. Blair?
Good morning, June. Good morning,
morning.
everyone.
Morning.
So the faculty, you've heard lots about what's been happening on campus this fall, so I'm not going to go back over some of those issues. Let me talk specifically about the work of the Faculty Senate this fall. We've been very active in some temporary adjustments to academic policies, things like when students can withdraw, when they can switch to a non-graded pass, fail, low pass type of grade. And very interestingly enough, all of these very necessary temporary adjustments have now got people thinking about more permanent adjustments. So the crisis has both tested the quality of the policies we already had in place, but also forced us to reconsider them, and in ways that I think are going to be very positive coming out of this. We put in place a permanent change to the definition of excused absence, as necessitated by our recommendations about celebrating Black Solidarity Day on campus. And I'm really pleased to say that we had they have been celebrating this in various ways for many years, but our first official celebration of Black Solidarity Day this fall. And the students on our campus worked with a group of students from Clarkson with some help from faculty, and put together an absolutely fantastic program, which I'm really excited about, and I think speaks well to the kind of things we'll be able to do year after year in this regard. We recommended a revision to the arts education program. We endorsed a motion of no confidence in the politically appointed members of the Board of Trustees with regards to appointing Chancellor Malatras without the usual search procedures. That's kind of a touchy issue because we wanted to make it very clear that this is not a vote of no confidence in Chancellor Malatras. This is really just a statement that we think that even under the current crisis circumstances, Chancellor Malatras should have been appointed in using the usual procedures. We endorsed a message to the SUNY community about the importance of diversity training. As you might know from one of the executive orders from President Trump really caused a chill in our ability to offer a diversity training in various regards on our campus. Luckily, most of our work in that regard is protected by academic freedom, but there were some training things that had to slow down or cease. And we sent a letter at the end of the semester thanking all of the students for their compliance with the COVID testing regimen. And we collected over $2,000 from faculty to put towards a gift for all students to thank them for their COVID compliance. It wasn't quite enough money in order to send each student the hoped for certificate for free ice cream. So we're going to hang on to that and see what we can do next semester to add to it and be able to give them some token of our appreciation. Other than that, I think I'll mention that President Esterberg has appointed a community policing advisory committee. And I'm really grateful that she followed the recommendations of the faculty on which faculty to include on the committee. We're looking forward to the work of that committee and what they could do. And I'd just like to say something about calendar and about mental health and about breaks. Nicole and Eric outlined very clearly for spring semester what we have done and what we're able to do under the guidelines from SUNY, in particular, Chancellor Malatras. And I think there's a general opinion that it's not enough. And I know this is an opinion that's shared by most of the faculty. I'm certain it's an opinion that's shared by the students. They're dreadfully concerned that we are going to have a mental health epidemic crisis in the spring semester. And it hopefully, with knowing this up front, hopefully faculty will be able to adjust their expectations. Students will be able to adjust their expectations of themselves, take into account the work they have to do in their schedules. But I'm really not confident of it. And in fact, just yesterday, the Student Affairs Committee asked our executive committee for permission to make student mental health the main topic that they work on through the coming semester. So I hope that we will get through the spring semester okay, but it would not surprise me if we are forced to take some other actions in this regard, just to make sure that all of our students, faculty, staff can keep functioning under the strain of all the things that are happening around us. With that, I'd just like to thank the council for their ongoing support and concern. It really matters to us to have you here, being part of our family and somebody we can turn to whenever we need help. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Blair, and thanks to the whole faculty senate for your ongoing work and support of the college. And Blair has definitely had his hands full this year. So thank you for stepping into that as well as the chair. Are there questions, comments? Hearing none, thank you very much, Blair, and I'll probably see you in a future faculty senate meeting. Okay, now, as President Esper mentioned, Provost Bergeron is not able to be with us today. Her report was included in the packet that you received earlier this week. And we also have the deans present and accounted for. So does anyone have any questions? Betty also told me offline that if there are questions that she needs to answer, that she's happy to have those questions relayed to her and she will get back to us. So are there any questions from the council? Opening the floor for the deans. Is there anything that any of you would like to bring up before the council? I don't see any hands raised or anything. So I guess then we will move through and we will go on to Keith Kaplan for a report on business affairs.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, June. So I'll refer to my report really for the bulk of it, but just a couple of points that I'd just like to emphasize is really, as if this needs to be emphasized, the fact that this year has been incredibly unusual, that unusualness really reaches very much into our finances as well, and to funding in particular. Forecasting is always fraught with uncertainty, but in an environment where there is so much uncertainty at the state level and at the SUNY level, with such a revenue shortfall across the board, it's just all the more challenging to do meaningful forecasting. We at Potsdam have to not only deal with the added uncertainty in our enrollments that were caused by COVID and the revenue associated with that, but also the uncertain funding from the state and SUNY levels that come from their own cash shortfalls and the uncertainty about stimulus and what will happen next. And because of that, as we started the year, SUNY system admin asked for us to budget first in 6-month increments figuring we'll know the answers by the end of 6 months. We'll know about our funding picture. Well, that didn't happen. That uncertainty continues. So system administration has asked for us to, instead of forecasting our next 6 months, to forecast 3-month increments. And that way they can disperse cash in smaller chunks, and they can more closely guard it. So that's going on now. We're in the process of revising our budget to be for the next 3 months. And the other thing I wanted to really emphasize, it's noted in the report, but the one thing that we do have some control over as a campus, and as not just Potsdam, but other campuses as well, is to what degree we can collaborate in order to try to save money. In particular over administrative operations. That's one of the quicker and more easy way to do things. Not that it's ever easy, but right now what we're really focused on is procurement. And so we're working as a team with colleagues over at SUNY Plattsburgh and also at System Administration to implement an e-procurement platform, an automated platform that's going to make purchasing more efficient. It'll enable us to improve our internal controls, but also ensure that we get the best pricing, that the pricing is right there and we don't have any uncertainty about that. So Western New York has already done this. They've already done collaborative e-procurement implementation. So we're going to really leverage their experience. So aside from that, I'm open for your questions, whatever might be out there.
Thank you, Keith. Questions, comments? Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Keith. And now we're going to move along to Melissa Prue for the administrative division update. And Melissa's also had more than her hands full as the HR director.
Thank you. I actually just wanted to point out one change that has occurred since I submitted this report. So in my report, I had indicated that UUP had extended the testing MOU to June 30th of 2021. And since I submitted that, we have two other unions, PEF and CSEA, who have also extended their MOUs until June 30th of 2021.
Thank you for that update. Questions, comments? Okay, thank you very much, Melissa. And now we will move to Sal Kania for the advancement update.
Thank you, June. Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody is well, and I thank you for allowing me to join you this morning. As you see from my report, fundraising and alumni engagement continue at full pace as we develop the virtual components of our work. And I want to commend the entire advancement staff for their nimbleness and determination to continue our work unabated on behalf of the college. I have 3 items that I want to refer to this morning. An update on the fundraising. At this point, we are over 1.4 million in fundraising for the fiscal year towards our total of $2.8 million. Part of the money we've raised this year includes a $1 million gift from alumna Pam Mitchell Fox, class of #59. Her gift will be used to create an endowment to provide scholarships for students, of course, half of it unrestricted, and the other half to students at the Crane School of Music. It's a wonderful gift for us to receive. Of course, a gift like this anytime is wonderful. Obviously, the timing now for scholarship is particularly useful to us. And as we say in the business, this is the kind of gift that was 60 years in the making. So very much appreciate this. President Esterberg mentioned a little earlier a grant from the Heckscher Foundation. We are one of only a handful of SUNY units to be awarded a challenge grant from the foundation to provide relief to students with emergency needs in calendar year 2021. It is a challenge grant, and it's a 2-to-1 match, which is great. The fundraising starts immediately, so any gifts that we receive starting at 11:02 on 12/11 will be matched 2-to-1 from the Heckscher Foundation, and we're very appreciative to them for their belief in us and in our students and the needs that they have, and that we can help serve this need. Well, we hope this is the first of other grants that will come in future years. My third item this morning, in my report, there is a chart that shows the impressive growth of the endowment, the foundation endowment over time. And of course it is impressive. It's doubled over the last maybe handful of years. The chart, however, shows the 20-quarter average growth on that endowment. That's a figure we use to determine income that we take off of the endowment each year. And of course, we also track the daily market value of our invested funds. And I'm so pleased to report this morning that the market value of our invested funds just topped $50 million. A really impressive achievement for a modest foundation. We're not huge, but to top that $50 million mark is quite an achievement. And as President Esterberg recently said, that 50 million means that we're halfway there. So that's all I have. Happy to help with any questions.
Gee, someone who says $50 million and then says, that's all I have. I guess that's a subtle ask.
Well, that's the business. We're always doing that.
It's never enough, I know.
Yeah, that's the nature. We never sleep. But we do like to every once in a while stop and celebrate the achievements that we've made. So.
Yeah.
Sal, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
So when I shared with some of the faculty I know that our foundation had topped that $50 million mark, they were really excited. But I don't think they really understood what the more immediate or direct impact would be on the college. Could you, maybe for the group in this room, share a few ideas about how that would directly impact?
Well, that is a market value, and I don't want to get too deep into the rabbit hole. But we take a quarterly value of the endowment, and we take those quarterly values going back 5 years. We average all of those together, and that becomes the number that you see on the chart. And using that 20-quarter average, we then determine our policy is each year to take 4.5% of that value off of the endowment and use it for various programs. Now, a majority of those programs are scholarship endowed funds. So about half of what comes off the endowment each year goes into financial aid. The other goes into various programs. So it's a common challenge, opportunity for those of us in advancement. On the one hand, we want to market and say, yes, great, we have $50 million. It's incredibly wonderful, which it is. On the other hand, though, we do take a fairly cautious approach as we take money off of that endowment to spend, so that our charge is to shepherd that endowment so that it will last in perpetuity. And so we take this more cautious approach as we take money off of that. So it is wonderful to see it at 50. It's going to be great to see it at 60. It means that each year it will do more and more for the college, but of course it's incremental growth. So Blair, I hope that helps a little bit.
Or maybe I'll try to summarize in one sentence. You tell me if this is right or not. 4.5% of $40 million is a lot less than 4.5% of $50 million.
It is, but it's still a lot more than the 30 million that we had relatively recently. So it's a journey. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sal. Any other questions or comments? Thanks again, Sal.
Great. Thank you all.
Now Ron Brown is going to give us the update on enrollment management.
Good morning, council members. It's very good to be with you here today. Wish that we could be in person. Look forward to maybe doing that in February at the next meeting. That would be lovely. The report that you have, gives you the picture, for our admissions numbers for spring and for fall. I'll make a few comments about that. Our applications are down for spring. And at the same time, our yields in terms of the applications that we have received are better. We are, looking at probably as many, maybe a few more new students for spring term than what we had last spring. It's possible. With COVID in the picture, we can't really 100% predict what it's going to be. But we do have more deposits, for freshmen than we had last year at this time. We have admitted more people than last year at this time. On the transfer side, our deposits are up as well. So for spring, I think that there's a chance that we might see a few more. I think we had about 60 new students last year. So we could be somewhere between 60 and 70, for this spring. Students really crave face-to-face instruction. And nationally, only 30% of the population are enamored with online instruction. So, we're fighting a battle. A lot of people have already experienced, well, everybody, basically high school and our college students have experienced online instruction now for 2 semesters, basically. So students are holding back on applications. The applications are running behind throughout New York, and I think probably nationally. High school counselors have not really had an opportunity to visit with their seniors very much. And it's during those visits that students select EOP as an option for those students that have lower incomes. And consequently, our fall numbers are greatly impacted by students that actually want EOP. So on the fall semester side of the coin, our deposits are up a little bit for both freshmen and for transfers. You see from the report that our applications are down by 850 for freshmen. But I think everybody has to keep in mind that 78.43% of all of the applications that we're missing are EOP applications. And so what we're seeing is a trend throughout the SUNY system. The SUNY system is missing, they are missing 10,780 EOP applications. We represent just about 5% of that total. So EOP is big throughout the entire SUNY system. And I expect an uptick in applications in January and February once the high school counselors have had the opportunity to do all of the visiting that they need to do with their students and everything. I think that we'll see those applications picking up as well. But it's kind of heartening actually to see how we're doing with our yields. We're very close to where we would want to be in terms of our admits and our deposits, and only a very small percentage of all of the people that apply to our institution each year, our EOP. We only have 35 slots for EOP students, whereas we received 2,000 applications for EOP students this past year. 4,500 applications altogether, and 2,000 of them were EOP. So we're doing pretty well in the heart of everything. We're basically missing about 242 regular applications. And nationally, all of the research indicated that for the fall of this past year, the fall that we just finished, we have done better than what they expected. They were expecting a 20% decline in enrollments, and we did not experience that. So I think that we're looking better than what the numbers actually show. But we also have to keep in mind that another semester is passing. We'll have the spring semester to pass before our new students come in the fall. And that's going to be another semester of experiencing online instruction. And so COVID could play more seriously into our fall 2021 numbers than what it played in our fall numbers and what it's playing in our spring numbers. But how much, it's really impossible to tell. In terms of what it's caused us to do in admissions, as the report shows, we have had to switch, pivot from face-to-face recruiting, high school visits, etc., to virtual everything. So everything is virtual, and because of that, it's absolutely mandatory. That we really get heavily into search name purchases to try to generate prospective students for our recruitment funnel. And that's what's happening throughout the country. The entities that we're using, to buy names, are telling us that our competitors are investing heavily in purchasing search names. They won't tell us which schools. They can't tell us that, of course. So we are doing that, and we have purchased a significant number of search names, to help us, for fall 2021. And our CRM slate, is busily at work, trying to convince those students, that they need to raise their hand where Potsdam is concerned. So virtual is definitely what we're doing, and virtual is what it looks like we will be doing throughout the spring term, since COVID is actually getting worse than better. It doesn't look likely that we'll be visiting high schools or doing any of that. But we are one of the few campuses who are accepting campus visitors, prospective students coming on campus to check the institution out. And I think that's a positive for Potsdam, that we are doing it, whereas others are not. And we've been very successful in staying safe, with our campus visitors. We have at least 4 to 5 staff members in the admissions office every day. We're accepting visitors 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and 1, which is a reduction from what we normally would be doing, but that's all because of COVID. So that's the new world that we live in. We are working on a strategic enrollment management plan, as the report shows you. I think we're making great progress in that. We have completed our primary goals, for the SEM, and we're completing our strategies, and we'll be working on cost and timelines and things like that. So we look to complete this in the spring. Are there any questions?
Questions, comments? No, hearing none. Thank you very much, Ron. And now we're going to turn the floor over to Eric Derscherer to give us the student affairs report.
Thanks, June. Most of the things that I would normally mention, I have been able to cover in the presentation earlier in terms of fall semester and spring. A couple of quick things just to mention in areas outside of things that were in the slides in the presentation. First, athletics. As many of you know, fall competitions for all of our teams were postponed to the spring, and winter competitions were in fact canceled. That being said, all of our athletic teams were allowed to engage in team activities and practices. And I think that that proved to be a remarkable bonding experience for our student athletes, and also will pay significant dividends in retention efforts with those students. Give you an example with hockey. Many of our SUNY counterparts did not even put ice in their ice arenas this fall. And the fact that we had our ice in so that both our men's and women's teams could skate and practice and engage in team activities significantly impacted in a positive way our student athletes. And the same can be said about our student athletes, not only on the rest of our intercollegiate teams, but we also had our club sport teams remained very active again in practices. Again, no travel and no competitions. But that was a significantly positive aspect. We are cautiously optimistic that our spring sports and fall sports, which were postponed to the spring, may be able to happen. But obviously the trend of the pandemic as we get into January and February will dictate what happens with those through the NCAA, the SUNYAC, and the other conferences in which we play. The team activities will not begin until the 15th of February, similar to in-person classes once we get through our 2 rounds of testing. We're also hearing some good news about the construction in the student union, which we believe is wrapping up, unfortunately later than we would have expected, but we are anticipating being able to be back in that building once the spring semester starts and start to be able to use spaces there. That will be particularly beneficial to Pacey's, which has seen a significant reduction in activity, particularly in the college store. And so that will be a great benefit to have that facility open for use this spring for our students. And lastly, I just wanted to mention and add on to Dr. Medor's comments from earlier and Faculty Senate observations about our student mental health. If you look at the statistics that I shared from our counseling center, that bears mentioning and supports, again, what Dr. Medor mentioned in terms of the ongoing and continuing mental health challenges for our students, which the pandemic has certainly exacerbated. The number of sessions that they're seeing with our students in a virtual or telecounseling setting, as well as the students who are participating in psychiatric care with our on-campus nurse practitioner, remains significant and higher than national averages, and again represents ongoing challenges that they have, which again I think are worsened by the pandemic, and will be representative of how important our 5 break or mental health or recess or reading days, whatever we want to refer to them as, that we will work into our spring semester, how important those will be for our students as well as our employees. So the rest of the information that I have there was mentioned in the presentation, and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Eric. Questions, comments?
Yeah, June, I've just got a quick question.
Go ahead.
Just what is the normal residence hall occupation in a normal year? How many people do we have in residences on campus in a regular year?
Sure. The answer to your question, Harold, as you can imagine, is it depends on the overall campus enrollment, of course. So typically our residential population is a little over half of the overall students enrolled for this. So most recently we had about 1,700 students in the residence halls prior to the pandemic. And that's reflective of enrollment. This past semester, as I mentioned, we were just over 1,000. We typically house between 91 and 93% of all of our new students and about half of our transfer students, which represents our 2-year residency requirement. So we require all students who enter Potsdam as new students to live on campus their first 2 years or 4 semesters. And then after that, they're certainly welcome to continue to live with us, but they can also live off campus. So,
Thank you very much.
welcome.
Other questions or comments? I'd just like to say that the portion of the website that we get every week that shows what's going on campus, as far as the students are concerned, you know, whether it's open skating or, you know, do it yourself, arts and crafts. I mean, it's terrific. And to the other council members, if you haven't been there, you should go and look at it once in a while. Same with the Potsdam Reporter. I mean, I think it does a really good job of giving you a glimpse of what's actually going on campus, remotely, concerts, the whole thing. So that's a good shout out to everybody that's responsible. So thank you for that. Okay, I guess we're done with you, Eric, for the moment. And now last but certainly not least, welcome Dr. Claudia Ford to her second council meeting, but the first one since she has been officially thrown into the acting director of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And if you've looked at her report, you can see that she has not been idle since our last meeting. Dr. Ford, the floor is yours.
Good morning, and thank you so much for that, Chairperson O'Neill. Good morning, College Council members and colleagues. And as you've already heard from my colleagues have spoken about the accomplishments in diversity, equity, inclusion. Those accomplishments represent not only the division, but the fact that so much you've heard about, so much of it really is a good thing because it points to the degree to which our diversity, equity, and inclusion activities are truly integrated across the entire campus. And so I want to congratulate everybody for that. I'd like to just point out a few things in addition to what's in the report. The Black Solidarity Day and Days of Reflection represented outreach to approximately 230 student participants total, and also included community members, students from the other colleges, and from the wider community. And I'd really like to call out how important those activities were, both for Black Solidarity and for Days of Reflection. We also are planning activities for Black History Month in February 2021. And I just was told for Women's Month, which is March of 2021. And so I think we will continue to see the kind of integration of diversity, equity, and inclusion activities across our campus. Despite the executive order that came out in late September, diversity training and anti-bias training has continued on our campus. And again, want to thank the initiative of staff, students, and faculty for keeping that going. We have, as you'll see from the report, very strong programs in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, including our C-STEP program and our NC-STEP program. The fact that those programs have continued and have fully pivoted to an online format is very admirable. We have a new director of the Center for Diversity, Clifton Harcum, who is responsible for the planning, both for Black Solidarity Month, but very especially for Black History Month. So we're really glad to welcome him into that role. He has been on the campus previously in a role with the division, but is new to the role as director for the Center for Diversity. And then I would just, in addition to what's in the report, I'd like to thank President Esterberg, the members of the President's Council and of the College Council for the extraordinary support that's been shown to me individually and to the division over this extraordinary semester. And I'm definitely open for any questions or comments about the report or the work that we have accomplished under this division.
Thank you, Dr. Ford. Are there questions, comments? Congratulations on everything so far.
Thank you.
You haven't missed a beat since you stepped into the position. And we thank you very much for that. Stability is important, especially in these times when nothing is stable. So thank you, Dr. Ford.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay, we're unusually quiet today, but that's all right. Okay, old business. No old jokes, just old business. Okay, the only thing I have under old business. Oh, go ahead, Rich.
I just got a general question, probably for Ron, but I probably should know this, but what does EOP stand for?
It's an educational opportunity program for those people that aren't quite as strong as the normal student coming through the pike. Some campuses call it an AOP program, Academic Opportunity Program, but in New York apparently they call it EOP. I was new to that when I came last September.
Okay, well, that's fine. I thought I should know that, but for some reason I just couldn't figure out what it meant. So thank you very much.
You bet.
Okay, thank you. I just want to mention that in the background, which normally would be more to the forefront of campus activity, is the ongoing Middle States accreditation. So thanks to everybody who is involved in that. And I want to give a particular thank you to Councilmember Steve O'Shaughnessy, who joined me in a virtual meeting with the Middle States liaison a month or so ago. I can't keep track of the days. I'm having trouble with the months these days. So I just want to remind everyone that as council members, we have a lot that the campus is investing in this. It means a lot to the campus in many different ways, not the least of which is financial. So keep your ears and eyes open for periodic updates on what's going on with Middle States. It's every 10 years, I believe, Kristen.
They've changed their process now,
okay.
and Jill actually is our Middle States guru. I don't know, Jill, if you want to give a
Sure.
briefing on some of the more important changes to the process.
Yeah, the Middle States timeline was 10 years, as you said. They've changed it to shorten that timeline slightly. It's now an 8-year from self-study to self-study timeline. To make that seem, it's actually a good change because they took out the midpoint review and made it a different process for that. So in the past, we've had to do something called a PRR, which was a periodic review report, which was not quite a mini self-study, but it was, you put a group together and you spent a year still updating them on all the changes since the last self-study and what we've done with our goals and recommendations since that self-study. And now instead we are doing annual reviews, which are largely based on data. There's a lot of pulling down data that we already enter into various systems and things that we do anyway for SUNY and other data sources. So that data is summarized annually. And now the midpoint peer review is accumulation of the 4 years of data that we've already submitted. And they just check in to make sure there are no issues or concerns. So it's a much more abbreviated midpoint process, which really makes that 8-year cycle much more logical and not more work, actually. So it's a nice set of changes, I have to say. At the same time, they also changed our standards. We're dealing with a new set of standards now. We went from 14 to 7 standards, which was a wonderful thing because there was a significant amount of overlap in those standards. So it was confusing and you were saying things in multiple places. There's always going to be some overlap given just the fact how all of this integrates together, but it's a lot less now. It's a lot more streamlined, I think, in general. Did that answer the question or did I miss something?
No, that that answers the question. And of course, you realize even when you leave, you will still be doing our middle states since you're the guru.
We have many gurus on the campus. I'm not the only one.
Okay, thank you, Jill. Any other old business? Is there any new business?
June, this is Nicole, and I would just ask the council to consider resolutions in appreciation of those responding to COVID, if that's something the council would consider at one of your spring meetings.
I think definitely. I think, yeah, perhaps we could put it, I don't know if our next meeting would be too soon, but either the next one or the one after that. So we'll do that and see if we have enough information to do it when we meet next, which, by the way, is February 5th. Can't believe it's going to be February again before we see each other. But I hope everyone had a nice Thanksgiving. It was different, even though my daughter, granddaughter, and son-in-law live a mile up the road. They had their dinner there, and Ron and I had our turkey here. Turkey breast, I might say, since we couldn't do the whole thing. So I hope that everyone was calm and safe and had as good a time as is possible, because I have to remind myself periodically, even the way things are, we have a lot to be thankful for. So I hope you did have a good Thanksgiving. I want to wish those who celebrate a happy Hanukkah. This is the second night, I believe. And also a Merry Christmas to those who celebrate. We're all looking forward to a new year, hoping that it would be happier, healthier, and continuing to be safe for everybody. And also happy Kwanzaa, since those holidays will all occur before we meet again on February 5th. So if there's no new business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Rich. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Harold and Molly. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, happy holidays, guys.
Opposed?
Happy holidays.
Oh, happy everything to everybody. And thank you all for being with us this morning.
Thank you, June.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Stay safe.
Bye,
Take
everyone.
care.
Yes, stay safe.
Bye.